What's happening? What's happening? Jason Priester, Clemson Insider. Appreciate everybody that's tuning in tonight. Busy weekend, busy Monday. A lot we can talk about. We can take it wherever you want to take it. We got lawsuits, the sweeping of rivals on the baseball diamond, spring practice, where I just got back from. I've not even been back an hour yet. So we've even got some basketball. We can talk basketball. A win at Virginia, which rarely happens. That place has been a house of horrors for Brad Brownell since he's been at Clemson, man. They go and conquer that beast up there. Don't care that Virginia's not what they have been in the past. That is still a beast that was conquered. Extend your winning streak. Extend your ACC road game winning streak. Move up a couple of spots in the net. Move up a couple of spots in the AP. It is a lot. It's the busiest time of the year. And then you got a big recruiting event coming up this weekend, elite retreat set for March 8th. So you got it coming from all directions. Wherever you want to take it, we can go. I'm sure most of you have seen by now the lawsuits are settled. And I think Clemson got everything they wanted to out of this thing. I feel pretty confident in saying that, if you catch my drift. They're going to see a substantial increase in revenue, which will put the gap about at what it's been already in the past. And we have seen Clemson is able to compete with that, with that kind of revenue gap. Now you start talking $40 million revenue gap, that's a different ball game. But if you can keep it about where it's been, then you're on to something and you're coming out on top. But I think the biggest thing is they're going to be able to get out if they do in fact choose to go that route, in time for the next round of television negotiations, and at a much cheaper rate, much more affordable than what it was originally. So two big things coming out of that. I think Clemson got everything they wanted to here. The next round of negotiations will come up, 2030, 2031, and that's kind of when you need to be out by. And with this settlement, that is absolutely doable now. Excuse me. BOT meets tomorrow. They, to kind of, I guess, put their final stamp on the approval. And again, you get everything you want. Baseball sweeps right through the rival Gamecocks. Took the first game in Clemson, took the second game in Greenville, went to Columbia and took the third game there. I predicted a 2-1 series win, so I was wrong on that. They went out and got stingy and took all three. Gives Eric Bakich his first 3-game sweep of the Gamecocks since he's been coach. Yeah, I know they swept last year, the 2 games. The third game got canceled, so that's technically a sweep. But this is his first 3-game sweep, and the first time he's going into Columbia and finished them off in Columbia. His first year as the head coach, they played the same rotation, Clemson, Greenville, and then Columbia on Sunday, and that was the last time South Carolina's won the series. Clemson swept actually 3 times in the last 4 seasons. I don't think you could have asked for much better. The pitching was just downright. It was really good. And you still haven't seen the best of Aiden Canuck yet. And the pitching was really good. Can't say enough about Mostad. Can't say enough about Joe Allen, Drew Titsworth, and holy hell, how about Ethan Darden, man? ACC Pitcher of the Week. And I think he absolutely earned it. Tied a career high in strikeouts, had a career high in innings pitched. And what he did in the first inning was just remarkable. You get out there, you're a little. He even admitted after the game, he's a little amped up. He issues a couple of walks. Next thing you know, the bases are loaded, nobody's out, and he gets out of it without surrendering a run. And then after that, he is just absolutely dialed in. I was kind of hoping they'd send him out there for one more inning, but that's why I'm not the head coach. Me personally, I would have probably brought in Reed Garris ahead of Mostad yesterday, seeing as how Garris hadn't pitched all weekend, and Mostad had just went 3 innings, I think it was Friday night. But again, that's why I'm not the head coach. We've already touched on the basketball. If you got some questions from spring practice, there's not been a whole lot we've seen. I've said it before. They don't let us see a whole lot, and there was really not a lot to see today. We only got to watch 4 periods, and it was all individual stuff. Bryant Wesco was in a green jersey. Freshman Marquez Henderson has a yellow jersey. I think he was in yellow Friday too, but didn't notice him on the field, so I'm assuming he was. He was not a guy that Dabo mentioned when he was talking about the guys that were hurt and were going to be out some of the spring, so I'm not sure what's up with him just yet. Before we get to our topics for the night, I want to thank our sponsor, A-Glass, for when you need a glass. 2 locations in the PD, 1 in Florence, 1 in Darlington. They can take care of all your auto glass needs, replacement, repair. Give them a call today. A-Glass. I can be very short with this one. No, I'm not worried about Canuck. Where am I at? I am in Clemson, man. When I come to Clemson, this is where I stay. This is where I sleep at when I am up here in the upstate. I've been here since late last week. I will be here for the rest of the week. Matter of fact, if you guys watched the baseball show, I was here Thursday night when we did the baseball show. I have not been home since. And then when I get home, I'm going to turn right back around and leave again. Just like I said, it is a busy, busy time of the year. Sounds like Clemson and FSU got a fair amount of what they wanted when filing the lawsuits. If reporting is accurate, penalties manageable in the future too. 100% manageable is absolutely the right word to use. They are very manageable. Clemson went about doing it in an entirely different way than Florida State. Florida State had people come out and say, "Yeah, we want out. We want out." You never heard anybody from Clemson saying that, man. But I know that Clemson got what they wanted out of this deal. If the numbers that are going around and the numbers I've heard are right, then yeah, I mean, you'll be able to get out, 5 years early for maybe about the same price Texas and Oklahoma got out a year early. I'd absolutely call that manageable. And then you get the uptick in revenue that keeps you kind of right where you've been all along. And if you can make it to the playoff and advance in the playoff, man, it's even more money because you keep all that money. You don't have to divide it with the conference anymore. Clemson got $4 million just from making it to the playoff last year, and that's theirs. They don't have to divide it up with the conference anymore. So I would 100%. I think Clemson pretty much got everything they wanted to out of this deal. I don't want to speak for Florida State because they were a lot louder about it, and they said they wanted out, and they made it sound like they want it out now. And to me, the goal is getting out in time for the next round of television negotiations. You're not joining a conference in 27 or 28 when they've already got a television deal that runs through 2030, 2031, or whatever it is. So long as you can get out by then, I think you're good. The question for me is, what does college football look like then? Because I still think we're headed for a break. I mean, the SEC and Big Ten's already threatening it. They've already threatened that once. That's how they levied all of the power. That's how they are able to rule over the college football playoff. That's why the ACC and the Big 12 and all the other conference commissioners or administrators or whatever voted in favor of giving them the power, because the SEC and Big Ten said, if you don't, we're leaving and going and doing our own thing, and you're not going to be included. We'll have our own playoff. And at some point, they're going to make good on that promise. And it could be about the time we see those next television deals. That'll probably be about the same time the next college football playoff expires. So that it'll be interesting to see what college football looks like at that point. I think LeGwernick hushed a lot of the doubters yesterday. When he locates, he's going to be very tough to hit. Yeah, command's key for him. I thought he got a little flustered in that first start, and he started just saying, here it is, hit it if you can, and they hit it. I don't know if that's the recipe for him, but yeah, when he's locate, man, when he's on and he's on top of his command and he's not walking a bunch of guys, he's tough. He's hard to handle. I don't think that South Carolina lineup's anywhere close to the most potent Clemson's going to see all year. I don't think they're a top 25 team, but they're still solid. And they've got some good arms. That guy that Clemson faced yesterday was their Friday starter, who people were saying a week ago was out for the year, and all of a sudden now he's pitching on Sunday. I've talked to somebody there about that yesterday, and he said he had no idea where that came from, but he'd been dealing with a bad back. But let's don't pretend like that was a bunch of scrubs that Clemson just swept. And then you add the rivalry aspect, man, and the atmospheres at those games Saturday and yesterday. I mean, that's no easy feat. And LeGwernick did not cave under the pressure the way I thought he kind of looked a little. I thought the moment looked a little too big for him there in Arlington. Turns out maybe that was a very good learning experience for him, man. And then what he did last weekend had to be a really big confidence boost, and he goes out there and does it. I'll be honest with you, I didn't know how yesterday was going to play out when we were driving down to Columbia. We were kind of saying, if they happen to lose, whatever happens, winning would be icing on the cake. And man, he was good. And Joe Allen was even better. He told us last night he's added a new pitch, just started working on it 2 weeks before the start of the season, man, and he's already out there throwing it for strikes. Backus talked a little bit yesterday about how, Allen's his slider, it always breaks away from the plate, and guys were taking it, and he was issuing walks. With this new pitch, he's getting it over the strike zone, man, and it's hard to hit. And man, he was lights out yesterday. He's been lights out all season, all 3 weeks so far. Small sample size. We'll see if he can continue it, but man, he's been really good. Interesting how many guys are moving around from O to D. Now Dixon, maybe Tink. Yeah, there had always been some discussions about Tink possibly ending up at DB. So that one didn't really come out of nowhere for me. Dabo's said it before that, he likes to, if a guy even if he thinks a guy might be better suited for defense, he likes to, and if they want to play offense, he likes to let them play offense first. Think Ronan Hannafin. Tink would be another one. Marquez Henderson's a guy to keep an eye on, because I know there's been some talk about him possibly, fitting at corner more so than on the offensive side of the ball. But I do think Dixon, we'll see what happens, him making the move over to defensive end this spring to see if he can grasp that and see what happens. He's a guy that's buried on the depth chart kind of behind Olsen Pat Henry, behind Josh Sapp even. I feel confident saying he'd probably be behind Bettencourt, going into this season. Why not make the move and see if you can find some opportunities on that side of the ball, man? He's got the length. We'll see if he can master some of the intricacies that go along with playing in, but he's still got a good long ways for the start of the season. He's got a lot of time to work on it. Stories last couple of weeks of Klubnik and Maffa both stating they were contacted by SEC teams without them in the transfer portal. NCAA turning a blind eye. Has any team been penalized for tampering yet? No. And you can bank on it that, it was done through back channels. That way everybody's hand stays legally clean. And nobody's coming out and calling any of these teams out. That's going to have to be the first thing. You have to have some type of whistleblower, and we've not had that. All we hear coaches or players saying is, yeah, I was contacted by so-and-so or so-and-so. They don't get specific and say exactly who contacted them. But that's a fight the NCAA is not going to win. If somebody brought it up, man, and they actually tried to penalize somebody for, they tried to get Tennessee for some similar stuff last year, I think it was, and Tennessee sued and they won. That's just the world we live in now. Everything is favoring the athletes and not the schools and not the organizations. And let's just say team A tampers with this player. He's not in the portal, and player jumps in the portal, immediately transfers to team A, and he's starting the next season. And in his first post-game interview, he says, yeah, team A reached out to me, convinced me to get in the portal, and, it's been a great move for me. Coach so-and-so, he told me it would be a good move, and it has been. And you've got the evidence, and the NCAA goes after them, and all of a sudden they say, hey, we're going to penalize school A, and, player A's ineligible. Well, first thing player A is going to do is sue, and he's probably going to win. He'll probably get an immediate injunction to where he doesn't have to miss a first game. So it's just there's a lot of things. The NCAA's hands are kind of tied with some of these court rulings and Supreme Court rulings in recent years. They worked on NIL legislation, from my understanding, for like 2 years, and then had to scrap it all at the last minute because of a Supreme Court ruling. It's just the world we live in now. It's just like the House settlement is supposed to include some new guardrails on NIL. They're supposed to be governed by a third party, not the NCAA. And if you're caught, using the pay-for-play model and using a collective to entice a recruit to come to sign at your school, you get penalized. You could lose rev share money or whatever. I have my doubts on how that's going to be enforced, and if any school cares, especially if they've got plenty of NIL money to throw around. Now, at a certain point, maybe these boosters get tired of throwing around that kind of money with no return on their investment. But obviously, as we see, we're not there yet. Did Ben Boulware have any impact in Tyler Atkinson being on campus this weekend? Absolutely, 100%. I've kind of touched base with Tyler a couple of times, once today actually, and he one of the first things he did was reference Boulware. He's not been on campus since last March, if I'm remembering right, and before Clemson parted ways with Goodwin, he had that Clemson had kind of fell off Atkinson's off of his radar. Then all of a sudden, Boulware's inserted into that spot to go out on the road recruiting. One of his first stops is in to see Atkinson. It was him, Mickey Kahn, and Dabo Sweeney. I think Boulware ended up going to see him twice. But 100%, man, Tom Allen being on board and Boulware being a coach of the linebackers, yes, it 100% factored in. And if for you guys that don't really follow recruiting, Atkinson's a 5-star linebacker in the 2026 class. He's the top linebacker in the class. He's one of the top 20 players in the class, regardless of position. So, I mean, whether you land him ultimately or not, it's an absolute great sign that Boulware is able to get him back on campus. Again, he's not been here since last March, if I'm remembering right. Is Gideon Davidson the starter from what you have seen? He is last in the rotation. Dead last, which is what I would expect for a true freshman in his third practice. I fully believe that Davidson will be the starter sooner rather than later. I'm not convinced he'll be the starter day one versus LSU, but I could buy into the fact that he wins the job that day during that game and is the starter going forward. Hopefully we all know that when you got big games like that as season openers, go back to Georgia last year when we didn't see TJ Moore until late in that game and Wesco didn't play much after he got blew up on the very first play he was in. Freshman didn't get a whole lot of time. Now maybe that changes this year with a guy like Gideon, particularly seeing as much time as Jay Haynes is going to miss. And, a lot of that might depend on what happens with Randall and EZ. But if we're talking just a sheer talent standpoint, then Davidson's absolutely top of the pecking order. But right now, he's at the bottom of the depth chart. And if you're asking me from what I've seen in practice, again, we see some stretching in individual drills. He definitely doesn't look like your typical freshman. But I'm not to the point where I'm going to predict he's your starter day one. Although I fully believe he will be at some point, and probably sooner rather than later. Darden has always been consistent, but this year he's taking his game to another level. We've got a really good pitching staff this year. Yeah, and you've not even nearly gotten Canucks best yet. And I'll say it again. No, I'm not too worried about him, man. He'll get it dialed in. And heck, let's just say he don't. I mean, if Darden keeps pitching the way he has and LaGuerna keeps, improving, and you get 60% of what you got from Connaught last year, I still think you're in pretty good shape. But I fully believe that Connaught will get it going, man. Especially when some of these umpires stop squeezing him and he stops pitching from him behind in the count or stops falling behind in the count early. But, yeah, Darden's been lights out, man. Again, he won ACC Pitcher of the Week this week. I was hoping he would. There was another pitcher or two that, you could argue had better outings, but none of them did it against the competition that Darden did. They all played, either a FCS team or a G5 team. None of them did it against Power 4 competition, and none of them did it against a rival at that. But, man, he was – it's hard to put into words what we saw from him on Saturday, man. He was that good. He was that good. So one projection as high as 70 million. Should Clemson make the college football playoff and maybe go more than one round? Yeah, I'm thinking you'll probably see more on this in the coming days, but based on what I've seen, 15 million plus extra 15 million in revenue, maybe plus, what you get from the playoff. And that would kind of line up with what you got here as high as 70 million. Allen, Titsworth, Garris, Mostad, very good bullpen already. Then you have Gillen and Bale. Absolutely, man. The bullpen has been, that has probably been the bright spot of the team, man. They didn't. I thought South Carolina had a couple of pitchers that really pitched well. Their Saturday starter, man, I thought he was the best of the bunch, man. He was just dealing. He kept the Clemson hitters off balance the whole time he was in there. He run out of gas there at the end and started walking a couple of guys, but man, he was so good. And he was just so good at mixing his stuff up. And then Eskew was pretty good yesterday, but the bullpen has probably been the brightest spot of this team over the first 3 weeks. And like you said, we haven't even seen Michael Gillen yet. Haven't seen Talon Bell yet. I'm not sure when we'll see Gillen, but I don't expect to see Bell for at least another 2-3 weeks at best. If they can keep their starters going, 5-6 innings a game, they're going to be in really good shape, man. We'll see what happens with the midweek. You got to get that figured out because the freshmen they started in the midweek last week did not fare very well. Let's see here. I think they've already announced who's starting tomorrow. Let's see here. I haven't even looked at it yet. McGovern's actually going to pitch Tuesday or tomorrow against Upstate. So that'll probably be a bullpen game. And then you got TBA for Wednesday. We'll see how McGovern does against Upstate, though. With the collusion between the SEC and Big Ten, do you think Clemson will be able to stay relevant because of how trash the ACC is until 2030? Yeah, I mean, I don't see the ACC as being any different than it was 5 years ago. The biggest thing is the money disparity. And with this settlement, that kind of nullifies that. It's going to put you right back where you were and maybe even a little bit better shape than you were in some years. And with as good as IPTAY is at fundraising, Clemson's already shown that they're able to, keep up and be competitive at that kind of disadvantage from a financial aspect. So, yeah, I 100% believe Clemson can stay relevant. A lot of that's going to depend on Clemson, though. We'll see what happens with this 2026 recruiting class. But with this rev share money that they're able to use now, they should be able to start making up for the lack of NIL funds they've had in the past couple of years. On Friday, the umpire Friday was downright bad. I was sitting right behind the track, man, and I'm telling you, he was bad. There was even some South Carolina media members there shaking their heads, but I mean, he was bad both ways. So, and I don't remember if he was a SEC or not. It was a mixed crew. There was a couple of ACC umpires, a couple of SEC. I can't remember which one he was, but yeah, he was not very good, man. He was bad. Good to see LaGuernick back. If we can get same old Gillen and Bell, that's what I've heard. That same old's healthy and is ready to roll, and that's not why we've not seen him. If you want to read between the lines there, but yeah, getting Gillen and Bell back would be big. Hoping to make it to the baseball game this Saturday. Hate I couldn't make the Palmetto series. It's my son's birthday. Yeah, I didn't make it to any of the games last year because I somehow ended up going out of town that weekend. I don't know what happened or how I got talked into that or what, but my memory's terrible. I remember where I went, but I can't believe I went out of town that weekend. I'm not sure how that came about, but if you ever need a ticket, I usually have one for every game. Don't have one for this Saturday, though. That's one of the few I do not have. I have little doubt we are headed to a semi-pro Power 2 already. Those two conferences have taken full control of what will happen going forward. Oh, absolutely, 100%. And if you're not a part of it, you will be left behind. And I still fully believe there's 2, 3, 4 teams in the ACC that aren't going to be left out. But yeah, I 100% believe the break's coming, man. They're going to break off from the NCAA and go do their own thing, and they're going to govern, have their own governing body and those kind of things. The question becomes, what happens to the other sport? Does football still contribute money to the other sports? There's a lot of unanswered questions there, and what happens with those? Because if football breaks off and keeps all the revenue to themselves, there's going to be some sports that are going to have to be axed because some of them absolutely bleed money. I can't tell you the date exactly when they're going to be out, but this settlement allows them to get out if they want to get out in time for the next round of, when the next round of television negotiations take place. By the time they're finalized and start taking effect. Now, does that mean Clemson's out in 2030? I don't think anybody can answer that at this point. But I do think when the time comes, yeah, they'll be out. And this settlement makes it where they can do it. Instead of, right now, the way the grant of rights is written, it's like, I think $500+ million to get out. And now you'll be able to get out at less than a fifth of that. Who will be running back 1 and 2? Yeah, I can't answer that, man. We'll see. Best case scenario, your freshman, does what is expected, and easy takes that jump, and then you don't have to worry about rushing Haynes along, who I don't believe is every down back, anyways. And you also got to see what happens with Adam Randall and how he kind of fits into all that. It's weird to see his big old self out there working with the running backs. He's a head taller than all those guys, it seems like. But I fully believe that Gideon Davidson will be the starter sooner rather than later. But like I said earlier, I'm not going as far as saying I think he'll be the starter game 1 just because it's LSU, and Dabo has always shown a propensity to lean on his veterans when they open against teams like that. The next trigger for conferences will be the beginning of the negotiation. Yeah, exactly. Whenever they start to finagle over the next TV deals, that's what you want to be out. You at least want to have some flexibility at that time. And then, that's about the turn of the century is kind of where I see some more movement starting to take place. The spring game's the first Saturday in April, and it's free to get in. I don't have anything new on Bell or Gillen. I've been told that Samoa's healthy and injury is not why he's not playing. Backus told me that they might be looking. It was going to be a few weeks before Bell was ready to go. I think he wanted. I want to say he said maybe start a conference play, but I don't know about on Gillen. He's Backus just he plays those injuries quite very close to the vest. No hate on McClatty, then goes on to hate on. No, I'm just kidding, man. Dude, you know as good as anybody, man, that baseball is a game of you're up one day and down the next sometimes. I have heard he killed it in the fall and he killed it in the preseason. So I would fully expect him to keep on getting some opportunities. I know he was 0 for first night. Did he play the second night? He only pinch hit and was 0 for 1. He did not have a good weekend. He was 0 for 2 yesterday and then couldn't get the bunt down. But, yeah, he definitely didn't have a good weekend. But I don't think it's the end of seeing him have some opportunities. Jaron Purify is so fun to watch. Always a threat to steal a base. Has a good glove and shows the power off. Something like that homer he hit on Friday night. He's also the reason why Nolan Naraki's starting in South Carolina now and not sitting on the bench at Clemson. It kind of, if you think about that, there are two guys in that starting lineup that transferred there because they couldn't start at Clemson. If I'm a Clemson fan, I'm hoping that I never take a transfer from South Carolina that couldn't start there and he comes and starts for me, because then I don't know. That's a bad look in my eyes. But Nathan Hall is killing it for South Carolina though so far, and before the weekend, Nolan Naraki had been off to a pretty good start. I've always thought Naraki had a pretty high ceiling. He just needed some opportunities. But, man, he's not Purified, not defensively particularly. Purify's made some great plays already with the glove. Then he had the mishap yesterday, which ended up working out. But, for the most part, he's been really good. And, the bat started to come around this weekend. He had kind of got off to a slow start out there in Arlington, but the bat's starting to come around for him now. He's 1 for 2 Friday. Then he was 0 for 2 with 2 walks on Saturday. Then yesterday he was 2 for 4 and had the big RBI. I think if we stay healthy, Purify and Chufo, obvious offensive. I think if we stay healthy, Purify and Chufo offensively, or whether we contend for Omaha run or not. I don't know that I agree. I don't know that you got to have Chufo killing it at the bottom of the lineup to make it to Omaha. The guy's so good defensively, man. You're not going to take him out because he's slumping at the plate, and he's probably not a guy that's going to go out and hit 310, 320 for you. You know, if you can get him around 250, 260, 270, I think they'd be plenty happy with that, particularly with what he gives you with the glove. Because as soon as he came in the other night, you know, he makes a good play with the glove and gets him out of an inning. But I forget which game it was, the one he didn't start. But fortunately for Clemson, they've got some infield depth and they don't have to start him every day. But I don't think he's a guy that has to kill it for you offensively, because I think they've got enough guys in the lineup already that can, you know, hit the ball. I don't think he's got to be one that goes out and hits 300 for you. I think they do need Purify's bat. And, you know, fortunately, he's starting to come around, man. He's hitting 333. You know, that's kind of about what you'd want from him. Based off this model, FSU doesn't get what they want. They won how many last year? They're still getting what they want. I mean, you know, the opportunity is there with the success initiative to go out and make that extra money. You just got to go out and do it. They didn't. They're still one of the it's still them and Clemson as the most watched team in the conference. So the brand, like you say, the brand's there. You know, the results thing, that's on them. That's not on anybody else. But the opportunity is there for them to go make that money, which is what they wanted. And I don't think they're living off an undefeated season from 2 years ago. I mean, you're still talking about one of the most viewed programs, football programs in the country. You know, especially if you start talking about outside of the top, you know, the bigger, the schools with the huge alumni bases like Ohio State, you know, the Blue Bloods. You know, they had a lot of success before the year before last. You know, I know they were down for a little while, you know, once Bowden got on the downside of his career and Jimbo kind of mailed it in, and they've had a rough go of it until that season a couple of years ago. But, yeah, I don't think they're living off an undefeated season from 2 years ago. It's not what this stuff's about, especially when it comes to realignment, man. It's all about brands and who can draw eyeballs, and Florida State draws them. Clemson offered a 4-star running back. They offered one today. Carson Baker, he visited today. I actually saw him out there. I know a little bit about him. He's a track guy. Clemson's been kind of initiated contact with him. Let's see. I know Spiller went and saw him a couple of times during the contact period, and he had initiated the contact a few weeks before that. So they've been kind of building that relationship for a while. He had to get to campus before he could get an offer because he's never visited before. The Baker was supposed to visit this weekend for the elite retreat, but I think he told me he's got a track meet maybe this weekend, so he ended up pushing to visit up. But Jay Lamar, not the linebacker Trey Lamar, but Jay Lamar is a running back that's going to visit later this month. He's never visited before either, so we'll see if he gets an offer. But Clemson's got some work to do with this kid, the Baker kid that picked up the offer today. They kind of got in a little late. I hated that they stayed in on McGill so long because I always knew he was not coming to Clemson, and if I knew it, they had to know it. But they still got plenty of time to make the ground up, though. I mean, but he's going to be one of the more coveted running backs in the class. Yeah, Pano had a rough weekend, man. Man, he had a tough weekend at the plate. If it's just one of those short things, and he can come out of it. But look, man, that pitcher that picked the McCoy kid Saturday for South Carolina, he made several of those guys look silly. His stuff was working, man. And again, he was mixing it up and changing it up, man. He was just in a groove, and that was one heck of a pitcher's duel, man, for those first 6-7 innings. But the dumb leap. See, man, this is where I get off the train, man. I can't stand when people kill kids like this, man. You had to go back and see how hard that wind was blowing in Greenville Saturday. Cam just misjudged the ball. It happens, man. As good as that guy is defensively, I think he's earned, the benefit of the doubt. And, I just can't get on board with calling it embarrassing because he missed one on a day when the wind's gusting 20-something miles an hour and blowing straight out to right field. You could tell, and the ball was hit sharply off the bat. You could tell once he got out there, he was I thought he overran. I just thought he misplayed it a little bit. He ain't going to make every play, and same goes for Purify. I mean, how many diving stabs has that guy made already this year and gets up and throws the guy out? And then he makes a bad throw, and just, it is what it is. I mean, there was another play that Purify was involved with, that they ended up reviewing where he looked like Chufo. I think it was Chufo, the shortstop, couldn't get the ball out the glove, and when he was tossing it second on a double play, but I put that one on Chufo more than Purify, man. But we're talking about college baseball. There's gonna be errors, man. If Clemson wins out and wins a game or two in the conference tournament, do you think they have a legitimate shot at a possible 3 seed? I think they'd have to, at the very least, make the championship game and maybe even win it. They're just not getting any love from the net, and they're they dropped the spot yesterday without even playing in the net rankings. Right now they're probably, if you just go by the net, they're kind of on that 5 seed line. So I think they were 21, maybe something like that. I forget what it was. They might have to go out and win it because they've got 2 quad 3 games left. If they get matched up with North Carolina in their first game, that would probably be I have to go back and look, but would it be a quad 2 game? Might be better off if you matched up with SMU in that first game, which I think that's a possibility now, depending on what happens the rest of the way. But to answer your question, I think they might actually have to go win it to jump all the way up to a 3. Why did the settlement happen now? Because ESPN picked up the option to carry out the television contract through 2036. That's kind of what everybody's been waiting on, and they did it. Any news on any of the safeties? Polo, Anderson, they're both supposed to be here this weekend. We already know Anderson's supposed to announce a commitment in May, so he won't even get, he'll be committed by the time the official visit weekend rolls around. South Carolina Clemson battle, I'd probably lean towards Clemson right now, but the O'Brien kid's still a long ways to go with him. Projected starter opposite park. The transfer will help. Took so much satisfaction in seeing Canuck strike out in a Rocky Friday night. Yeah, he did rub it in a little bit. Yeah, that was gold, man. Yeah, I could dive deeper into that, but I better not. That was gold. When Canuck is dealing, man, and he's fired up that way, man, that's when he's fun to watch. Gamecocks struck out so many times yesterday, you thought Monty Lee is the hitting coach. Gaffney went under the radar this weekend. Yeah, I think he had like 5-6 hits this weekend. Yeah, kind of been waiting on that. Again, I know it's still early in the season, man, but it feels like it feels like we've already been playing 6 weeks. Yeah, that's kind of what you expected from him. And good Lord, he's been the great wall of China at first base, man, scooping up some of those off-target throws. He has bailed out some of those guys a bunch of times already. Our infield is definitely a lot more fun to watch this year. Man, it's like they got 3 shortstops on the infield. You know, Chufo's a shortstop, obviously. Purify's a shortstop. Pano was a shortstop. Heck, he's already played shortstop a couple times, man. But hey, that just just when you got 3 shortstops on the infield and then Gaffney at first base, Jesus, man. There's not going to be many to get through there. Yeah, see, I'm not of the opinion Cam was trying to look pretty out in center field, man. I think he did what he thought he had to do because he misjudged the ball. And he was still catching them one-handed after that, at least a couple of them. Do I think Sammy Brown deserves to be a preseason All-American? Maybe not. I'm sure that I'd have to look at it and dig into it, but I can't think of any off the top of my head. And that's only because my memory sucks now. But I'm sure there are some older guys that are probably have earned that status already. I mean, maybe if there's one of the preseason All-American teams that maybe an honorable mention or a third team or something like that. I mean, I don't know that he's done enough yet to kind of earn that kind of recognition, but don't be surprised if he's not an All-American at the end of the season. Do I see any commits after this weekend? I'm leaning towards no. That most of those guys are going to follow through and take officials. All of them that are supposed to be there that I think Clemson's got realistic shots of landing have already scheduled official visits in December. Don't mean they'll all follow through and take them, But that means as we sit here today, they're thinking they're going to take it into the summer. There's a couple of offensive linemen that I think might be getting close, which Maxwell Riley's said. He said publicly that he's getting close. Matter of fact, he told me it might have been end of December, early January, that he was thinking about having a decision made as early as late January or into February. Didn't play out that way. I think some of the coaching changes at Ohio State played into that, and then he had to do some shuffling around with his visit schedule. He's not a guy that's going to be here this weekend. Matter of fact, he told me right before I jumped on here that he is going to visit he's visiting Clemson on March 24th, and he's going to be at Ohio State April 1st, so I wouldn't expect one before that. We'll see about that. I think Adam Guthrie might be a guy that's getting close, man. He's supposed to be here this weekend, depending on his basketball schedule. Last time I talked with him, he said there might be a basketball game that could conflict with him getting here this weekend. I got to check back in with him this week and see how see how his playoffs are going in basketball. But I'm not expecting a bunch of commitments like you would see after the big official visit weekend. But maybe if I had to pick one, man, I'm probably leaning towards Guthrie, although I would probably say he's going to take he might take it a little bit further, and we'll see if he follows it through on all his officials. But that's a guy. I've had a couple conversations with him, and that is a guy that Matt Luke has made a profound impact on. Profound. And if you can snag him and you can snag Riley, and I know there's been some crystal balls put in on Riley, but I'm thinking those might have been a little premature. Not saying Clemson's not going to get him. I don't think he's a lock either way yet. But if you can snag both those guys out of the state of Ohio, be pretty impressive. His tackling fundamental was a big focus for the defense the first few days. I have not watched any of the defense. I laid eyes on a couple of the freshmen, but Will kind of handles the defense and I handle the offense. But I can answer that question for you. You can best bet fundamentals are going to be a big part of it this spring. Not that we're gonna watch any of it, because they only let, like I said at the top, we only got to watch 4 periods, and it was individual stuff and some stretching and those kind of things. We don't get to see the meat of practice. When we were, they'll come on the loudspeaker and say, "This ends our viewing window for the day. All media, please escort, or please, head towards the exits," however they say it. And as we're leaving off, I can hear Dabo on the speaker, "Line up for the Clemson drill." I think that's what Clemson calls their Oklahoma drill. But, we don't get to see any of that stuff, but I can 100% tell you that fundamentals are going to be a big part of it this spring, man. Chris Rumpf was laying in the guys Friday, and it just because they weren't lining up right, just hitting the sled. Darian Mayo was one of them. So yeah, that's going to be a big part of it. I fully believe that. Fully believe it. Play Purify made in the midweek last week was filthy. Yeah. It didn't make Sports Center top 10. That's hard to believe, because it was definitely worthy of it. Make sure it did not. Here's your answer to the question. Whoever answered it earlier, that Street is an ACC umpire. We almost never hear any basketball recruiting. What players minus the commitments are the Tigers in good shape? Well, yeah. I don't know, man. Basketball recruiting stuff's just it's hard to come. It's hard to get. Every now and then I can find out who's visiting for a game. Like they had the 5-star LJ Smith in for the Duke game a few weeks ago. They had another kid in. I forget who it was now, last week or the week before, but I don't do a lot of digging on basketball recruiting, so I can't tell you who they're in good shape for. It's just, especially with Brian L these days, man, he leans so heavily on the portal. So I'm sorry, I don't have a good answer for that one. Do I think all 6 Clemson guys get drafted, or definitely have? I don't know about all 6 because Aiden Swanson's got to be counted in there, right? You counting him? I'm not a big NFL guy. I've not watched any pro. That's why I didn't answer any of the pro day questions earlier, because I haven't watched any of that stuff. I've been so busy with baseball this weekend. I definitely think Barrett gets drafted. I think Brennan Stool will get drafted. I think Marcus Tate will get drafted. I know I'm missing somebody. Who else is there? Who else? I think RJ Mickens will get drafted. That's 5 right there, right? I know I'm missing one. Who's the other one I'm missing? But yeah, I think those guys will get drafted. I don't think any of them's going first round or anything like that. But yeah, I think they'll probably, all the combine guys. Yeah, I think they'll be drafted. Yeah, Maffa. Page. I actually read where Page has kind of been killing it out there. So yeah, I think they'll all get drafted at some point. I just don't think none of them's first rounders. I'm not even sure any of them are second rounders. All right, man. We had a pretty good turnout in here tonight. I want to thank everybody that tuned in tonight. Especially want to thank our sponsor, A-Glass. 2 locations in the PD, one in Florence, one in Sumter. You need your windshield repair or any kind of auto glass repair, give them a call. A-Glass, for when you need a glass. If you're a big baseball fan, Ashby and myself will be right back here 7 o'clock Thursday. We're going to dive much deeper into the baseball series over the weekend. Look ahead to Davidson, probably talk a little bit about USC Upstate and Presbyterian. Don't want to miss that. And if you're not a baseball guy or a baseball woman, because I know we got some gals that tune in, right back here next Monday night, 7 p.m. See y'all then.